Hey everybody, back here at the dugout in Marietta, Georgia, doing another video specifically on Hobie fishing kayaks. So the last video I did, we compared the Pro Angler 14 versus the Pro Angler 12. Today what we're gonna do, I've had a lot of requests for this since I've spent time with both boats. We are gonna compare the 360 drive to the 180 drive and see if this drive is actually worth the extra investment. So before we get into that, let me kind of preface this by saying I've been a Hobie Pro Angler for 3 years now. I've had the 180 drive the entire time, and I absolutely loved that drive. Yes, it was a little cumbersome having to pull that reverse tab to go reverse, but really once you get used to it, not that big of a deal, and I didn't find that really impeded my fishing experience. So let's get right into it. What is the main difference between the two drives? The name says it all, guys. 360 degrees of maneuverability in the 360 drive versus the 180 drive. When Hobie released this thing last year at ICAST, this thing changed the, I can't say change the game, that's just crazy, but it changed the way that we look at fishing kayaks. So essentially what this drive was able to do, literally go 360 degrees, allowing anglers to essentially have spot lock on your kayak. So the way that this arrow is oriented is the way you're gonna be moving. You can literally fish sideways down a bank, you can back up, you can hold yourself with current and conflicting winds. You're literally able to move any direction you want just by turning that dial. The 180 drive can't move like that. Let's get into whether or not that drive is worth the extra money. So I'm gonna be real with you all. When it first came out, I was in this boat with the 180 drive. They had just released the kick up fin option, and to be totally honest and upfront with you, that was all that I needed to be happy out in the water. Having the kick up feature where the fins literally break away when they hit a stump, a rock, or any underwater obstruction, honestly made me the happiest kayak angler out there. That really was my only complaint with the Mirage drive, was the fact that if you hit something, you're gonna bend a mast and you'd have to do some on the water surgery. With that feature, solved all my problems. So in my mind, I didn't really want to jump into the 360. Initially, I wanted to stay in this boat. I was comfortable with it. I understood how this drive worked. There were way less moving parts, but I knew, being a Hobie ambassador, I needed to get in this boat, put it through its paces, see if it was really worth it. So I have been in the 360 now since January. What is that, a little over 6 months? And I've had this boat out in the ocean, inshore, offshore, small rivers, lakes, reservoirs, grass, stumps, every different kind of situation, you name it. I've been in this boat and this boat. So having that experience, what I can tell you, I truthfully was able to see where this boat truly shined. And that is, if you're fishing any moving water where you've got a little bit of current, whether that be tidal conditions or on shallow rivers or moving water below the dam, what have you, this drive really shows its value. And that brings me to my second place this really shines, is when you've got any type of wind. If you're fishing a point and you're making a very specific cast, or you're out in the ledges, or you're fishing a bank and you've got wind coming on your side, you can literally maneuver that drive and keep your boat right where it's at with the wind coming at you from a different direction. It makes it a lot easier to make the right cast and to hold the right position. Another area this kind of comes in handy, when I was down at Lake Seminole fishing floating hyacinth mats, I was literally able to weave my way in and out through those mats, whereas in this boat, I'd have to take a hand paddle and kind of turn my boat a little bit to get it to go around and over. So in certain circumstances, I can see where having this drive is going to be very applicable in certain situations. Let's talk pros and cons between the two drive systems. So we're going to start with the 180. The pros on this. This boat is less expensive than the 360. Another thing, this drive's been around for years. It's rock solid, and if you do happen to break something, it's usually a pretty easy fix that you can do on your own. It does have the kick-up fins. Again, that solved the majority of my issues. If you're out fishing a tournament and you have an issue with the drive and you have to replace your drive, this hole will accommodate any drive out there aside from the 360. So an old GT drive, regular 180 drive, any drive, and there's a good chance that other people at the tournament will have a drive that'll fit this boat. So as far as cons go on the 180 drive, in my opinion, there's really only one con with this drive, and that's that you have to pull the reverse tab in order to go in reverse, and it lacks the 360 degrees of maneuverability. But that's really, in my opinion, for having this thing for 3 years, the only negative to the Mirage 180 drive. So moving on to the 360. Let's talk about the cons of this thing first. So let's talk about the cons right out the gate. First con being, it's a brand new drive and there are a ton of moving parts. Meaning this drive is gonna need just a little bit more maintenance, and there is a possibility that more could go wrong with this drive. In the 6 months that I've had it, the negatives that I found where it takes just a little bit of time to kind of break this drive in, if that makes sense. Meaning at first it felt like it was almost a little bit more difficult to pedal, but after a few hours in the boat, that went away. And the second thing, the kick-up fins were a little more rigid. Essentially there's a break-in period. So I would take the drive home, hit the fins, knock them back in, hit the fins, knock them back in, until I felt like that process was a little more fluid. The other negative I found, if you're at a tournament and something goes wrong, you have to get another 360 drive. And the chances of somebody having an extra probably aren't very good. And lastly, it is more expensive, guys. More pricey, definitely a con. However, the pros of this drive, obviously already been stated several times, the maneuverability is second to none. It really is. And that's something you really won't know that you're missing until you're in this boat. Another pro, I feel like this boat is a little faster than the 180 drive. I'm able to maintain a higher speed for longer than I am with the 180 drive. Another pro, if you happen to have an issue with this drive, it's got a great warranty. Hobie has been really good about sending out a replacement if anything goes wrong with this drive. So, is it really worth the extra money? Here's how I'm going to truthfully answer that. If I hadn't been in that boat, I would say no. If you're just getting out there, you want to get on the water, you want a good experience, the kick-up fin option on the 180 drive literally took care of any concern that I could possibly have. This is a bulletproof drive. I love my time in it, and I think this is worth its weight in gold. That being said, if you find yourself fishing in circumstances where you're maneuvering around a lot of structure, or you're fishing anywhere with even a little bit of current, or you're susceptible to high winds, is it necessary to have a 360? No. But if you can't afford it and you want to treat yourself, it is an awesome tool. It makes fishing in any of those circumstances extremely easy. Essentially, the best way I can describe it, if you like having a stock truck with the basic package and then upgrading to your leather interior, wood trim, air-conditioned seats, you don't have to have it, but it makes your experience that much better. So I hope that answered some questions for you guys on the 360 drive. Like I said, I love them both. I probably will continue to stay in the 360 in the upcoming years, unless Hobie comes out with something else, which they usually do. So if you guys have any more questions or want to see anything else Hobie fishing related, drop it in the comments and we'll put a video up on that next. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a good one.